Good morning, everyone, and this is take 2 of the webinar for today, How to be a Brilliant BFLC Lawyer. I'm doing this via webinar because I want to record these sessions and start to put together a bank of BFLC training videos. So chances are you're either listening to this today, which is May 2016, or you might be listening to this at some future point in time, which probably means that you started at Brisbane Family Law Centre. And what I'm trying to capture really is what I consider are the necessary traits or the best bits about being a lawyer here. What I hear all the time from people is, oh, it's really different working at Brisbane Family Law Centre, but actually articulating what different means is hard. So I thought probably best just to put pen to paper and try and literally work out what it means to be a brilliant lawyer here at the firm. And I mean, I know I'm talking about Brisbane Family Law Centre. I have a vested interest in focusing on my firm. But I think what I'm going to talk about today is useful no matter where you're working, and it's probably useful whether you're a lawyer or not, to be entirely honest with you. As I go, if you have any questions or comments, please fire them through. You need to type them in the box. If you find yourself dropping out, it'll probably be because you've got too many programs running if you try to watch this live, so just shut a few things down and log back in. And if you can hear me now, could you just sort of type a comment to say, yes, can hear you loud and clear, just so I know that technically everything's working, because I do want to record this. So in terms of this idea of what is it to be a brilliant or a great or an amazing lawyer, I think we all have some wonderful stereotypes that we think of when it comes to being lawyers. Most of us have been here for some time now, and we know that the BFLC lawyer is anything but the stereotype. The stereotype for me is often male, is the gentleman from the show Suits. They're often quite confident, cocky. I describe them sometimes as being chest thumping. There's a whole lot of things that when you say to the world, I'm a lawyer, there's a whole lot of things that people think about and assume about you in that context. And I think many of those traits are things that don't particularly inspire me or interest me about lawyers. And what I'm looking for here at Brisbane Family Law Centre is a different type of person and a different type of lawyer. So for me, if I was to break it down and say, here are some key things that I would put to or describe about some of the people I've worked with over the years that I think are great lawyers, top of that list for me is technical skill. It's not something I talk a lot about or harp on about because for me it's an expected thing. It's not something that I want to teach. It's not something that I think has to be taught. I think it's something that we need to own ourselves as lawyers and we need to be responsible for. The further you go in the profession in terms of your years and experience, the more that is required of you in terms of that technical skill. And it's actually the easiest bit to learn. The beautiful thing about the family law is it is all in legislation. It's all in a book. And between legislation, between case law, between lectures, articles, conference papers, there's no end of resources that you can access to teach yourself about different areas of law. And I think when I look back on my time starting out as a lawyer, that's really what I focused on those first couple of years, was trying to read cases regularly, trying to read legislation all the time, making sure no matter what I was doing, I was coming back and saying, well, what's the law upon which this is based? And so for me now, it's a bit innate and I don't have to pause and think about it. I can't recite sections from the Act with any ease. That's me and that's my brain, and I'll never be able to do that, and I don't have any great interest in doing that, but I certainly know where to find them when I need them. And so for any person starting out here at this firm or anywhere really, I'm going to say to you, your technical skill as a lawyer is your first essential thing. If you don't have that technical skill, then everything else becomes somewhat useless. And so that's where I'd be focusing, particularly for the younger people here at the firm, is making an effort once a week, once a day, whatever it is, taking the time to push yourself and to learn something new, setting yourself some goals around that. And I know one of the things I used to do was try and make sure I got into court regularly. So if I was in there doing something, I'd go and sit in the back of someone's court for half an hour just to watch other advocates, watch other lawyers and learn from them. And once you start scheduling that stuff into your day, once you start taking time to pick up a paper and read it once a week, you'd be amazed how much starts sticking. But I guess I want to be clear, for me, it's not the stuff that I want to be teaching, because I do think it's the stuff that you can access yourself and you can learn yourself. Always happy to talk about areas of law, talk about things, but you get to a point where you've come through law school, you've come through college of law, or whatever you've done to be a lawyer, you've got to start taking ownership of your own intelligence and training. And the technical side of it is the one thing that you really can own and be responsible for and pay attention to. The only other thing I want to say about technical skill is that there will always be things that you're naturally great at and things that you're naturally less interested in or find harder. And I remember for me initially, I found parenting matters really easy, and I really struggled with property matters. It just seemed like so complicated and so confusing and really hard. And a big part of that was because my initial training as a lawyer was all in parenting matters, and I did very little work in the property area. So I had to make a really concerted effort to focus on property, to read a lot, to pay attention to it, to try and take on the property cases, so that I had that exposure and experience. And I think now, when I pause and think about it, I actually prefer doing property matters than parenting, because the law when it comes to property is clearer, it's easier. So, once you understand it, it's easier to apply. It's a bit more organised, mathematical, and probably a bit less discretionary than parenting. Parenting is so challenging because, of course, families, children, parents are all different. So whilst there are principles, the way they're applied in every case really is different. So in terms of certainty of outcome, I think parenting is much harder when it comes to advice and comes to working with people. It's much more emotional. Property is a bit more black and white, and I think that can make it a bit easier in terms of your lawyering. So my second big trade, and these four on this slide were my four big ones. There's about 500 as we go through today's webinar, but these four were my big ones. The second one for me is to be curious and not judgmental. And I think a great lawyer is exactly that. They are curious. They are genuinely interested in understanding the person that they're working with, whether that be a team member or a client. So generally interested in people, not for the point of, being judgmental. Judgmental is not a nice thing, and it's not a great thing when you're a lawyer. So I'm interested in team members that are equally curious, that genuinely want to understand, particularly when it comes to clients, the person that they're working with. And once you can genuinely understand that person, you can really start to offer some fascinating solutions for them. The beautiful thing about this job that I think we're privileged to have is that we get to work with people who are often in one of the worst stages of their lives. And as such, they're vulnerable, they're difficult to manage, they're emotional, they're challenging, they're all of those things. And I think everyone working with me has probably heard my Clarissa having a baby story, but just in case you haven't, I'm going to tell it again. The day I had to have London, I was taken into hospital to be induced, and it was horrific, and I was horrific. And it was horrific because I was really scared. It probably wasn't that horrific in retrospect, but at the time I was absolutely terrified. And I was probably a really difficult patient, and certainly my doctor didn't appear to like me that much because I was crying, I was emotional, I was really scared. And for me, that experience always brings home, and something I use all the time to remind myself that the people that we're working with probably feel like I did that day when I was going in to deal with the complete unknown. I knew it was going to be painful, and I didn't know what that would mean, and I didn't know what was going to happen at the end of it. And that's what our clients are experiencing. So I think it's important to put yourself sometimes in their shoes and remind yourself of a situation that you faced in life that was scary, that was unknown, that was difficult. And when we feel like that, we're not often our best selves. So we need to be empathetic to that, and we need to be understanding. And a really simple way of doing that is to be curious, is to ask lots of questions, and is to genuinely try and get to understand the person. You don't have to be them, you don't have to like them, you just have to understand them. And the minute you understand them, you're going to be able to really work with them in a fascinating way. The third sort of key trait that I think is essential to be a brilliant lawyer is honesty. It's a given. We all swear an oath when we're sworn in, but honesty extends so broadly. And I think it is, I guess, in a big sense, of course, people are honest and they're not going to lie about big issues. But I think honesty extends for me in a much more personal sense. And I think one of the things that I try and do is be honest about where I'm at myself, where I'm at in terms of my own talents, skills, feelings. So I'm very comfortable with acknowledging and being honest about the fact that I may not know an answer to something, or that I may not be the best person to give that answer, because I know that there might be someone else that has that knowledge or skill that's better than me. I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with being honest when things are not going the way I want them to be, or to go. And that's hard, I think, and it's hard in this profession, which is all about stereotypes and looking a particular way and not demonstrating weakness and knowing the answer so that you don't look bad in front of a client. The longer I've been doing this work, the more I'm learning that if you're comfortable and confident in acknowledging that you don't have the answer, that's actually more powerful than trying to hodgepodge together some sort of magical answer that potentially is just entirely unhelpful or wrong. So for me, honesty on a surface level is a given. We can't, as lawyers, as human beings, we can't be being unethical or being dishonest. But I think it's a deeper thing than that, and it is about being honest with yourself, with the people around you, and having that dialogue that is open and is honest and is respectful and is curious. My fourth thing was being authentic. I'm interested in working with people who are actual real people, who are willing to share themselves with my team, with myself, where I get to understand who they are. I want to know what they're interested in life. Again, running the firm now for 9 years, I've had plenty of time to contemplate why it is that I want to run a firm, why it is that I want to have people around me. And it comes back to this for me. I am an extrovert. I do love people. I get my personal satisfaction. What drives me in life are the people around me. So when you've got people around you, if you're someone like me, who are, vibrant, energizing, positive, purposeful, that rubs off. A flip side of that coin, of course, is when you've got people around you who are less authentic, who are more hurtful, less kind. That also rubs off. So I can now track my life in a broad sense, but also my business life, and I can really pinpoint the periods where I've been performing at my best, and it'll be when I'm supported by great people. And so that's what I am really looking for when I'm adding to the team here now, authentic people. I can teach technical skill. People can learn technical skill, but you can't learn kindness, generosity, all of those sorts of traits of a human being that are positive, useful traits. And for me, that's what being an authentic person is about, being comfortable being yourself, no matter what's going on around you, no matter what people might think about that, but just being comfortable being yourself. So they were my four sort of key traits that I was thinking about when I was writing, putting this together, if I had to sum it up. But I'm going to keep flying through because I've got a lot more. I could only fit 4 on one slide, really. So here's my second floor. Other traits of a brilliant, great, amazing lawyer: being flexible. That's something that I've really found interesting over the years. Some people are naturally flexible and some people are not. And I don't mean flexible in the sense of doing splits in the back office. I mean flexible in the sense of, when things aren't going to plan, that you can shift and move and accommodate and just go with the flow. And those traits will get you through so much. And, if you think about going to court, you can go to court thinking that you know exactly how the day is going to pan out and everything's going to be what it is, and it never is. And if you're someone that is so structured and focused and it has to go your way and then you fall apart when it doesn't, it's going to be a real problem in this career path. So focus yourself on the capacity to just, let water run off a duck's back is the descriptor I use a lot of the time. To not get your knickers in a knot when things don't go the way you want them to go. It's entirely okay to be frustrated and to acknowledge that and say that. And sometimes the mere acknowledgement and saying, this is how I feel about this situation, of itself is a way of breaking that down and getting past it. But being able to be flexible, I think, will get you so far in this somewhat difficult career that we've all chosen. Being creative. So many lawyers are naturally creative souls, and they're often great performers, drama, that sort of stuff. They've done debating at school and at university and all of those things. And it's that creativity that I think can really bring some beauty to the work that's being done. I love to bring that out rather than push that back. I think a more traditional, stereotypical role model of a lawyer pushes the creativity back inside. I'm interested in pulling that out. Those of you working with me know full well that I'm a creative soul, and that's what gets me through life. And I think they're beautiful things. And if you can work your own creativity into the work that you're doing, again, it will feel more purposeful and you'll probably be far more passionate about what you're doing. Have empathy. I mentioned this before when I was talking about being curious, and I think having empathy for other people, very, very powerful. I've only in the last week counted the number of times I've said to myself or to people or to clients or colleagues, I don't judge anybody anymore. I see so many different things. We all see it in here. So many different people in so many different situations. And the number of times I say to myself, there but for the grace of God go I just couldn't count. I must have said that 1,000,000 times. It wasn't until I started doing this work that I realised and really appreciated my own upbringing and my own life and how sheltered that was. And I think it is so important to be empathetic, particularly with clients who are difficult, really difficult. Rather than getting angry, frustrated, annoyed, judgmental, focus on being empathetic because their life is not easy. There'll be a myriad of reasons why they are the way they are, or they feel or think the way they think, and that is what it is. You can't change that. So rather than judging them, have empathy for that, and you'll find yourself calm down. You'll find them calm down, and as a result, your whole working relationship will be a lot easier. I do the same with people I'm working with, so colleagues, team members, same thing. I don't always agree with things that people do, decisions that they make, choices that they make in life. That's normal. But I prefer, I might get frustrated and I might get annoyed, but I prefer to try and let those emotions dissipate pretty quickly because they're unhelpful emotions. And I prefer to focus on that notion again of kindness and empathy. I think it reminds me a little bit of when my parents say things to me like, when I was your age, and I catch myself saying that now and I don't even feel that old, but the older I get in life, the more I am realizing that there's so little that actually matters. And the stuff that actually matters is the big stuff. So they're the driving thoughts I have. What matters to me now as I'm getting closer to 40 is very different than what mattered to me when I was at the early stages of my career. But I think I wish a lot of the time, maybe people did say it to me and I didn't listen. I wish a lot of people had have said, Clarissa, don't worry about that stuff. It's not going to make any difference. Focus on these bigger picture issues. And my final one on this slide, of course, is have a genuine interest in people. And I've probably covered that a little bit again with that curiosity. If you're going to work in family law, you will need to have a genuine interest in the human beings. Otherwise, what on earth would you be doing this work for? It is all about the people. And so you do need to have a genuine interest in people, in what drives us, in what makes our minds tick, in the psychology of human beings. And that stuff's interesting. And I think, again, the more reading you do on neuroscience and the way our brains function, particularly under stress, the way our bodies work, it's fascinating. I find it fascinating. I encourage you to read it, and you put that together with technical knowledge, and then you've really got a fascinating and very valuable lawyer. Efficient. A BFLC brilliant team member will be efficient. Key to being efficient, I'm jumping ahead, is being organised. Efficiency, everyone has their own styles, but you need to have a style. You need to have a process. You need to have a way of being efficient. Efficient doesn't always mean fast. One of the tactics I was given some years ago by good old David Durham at Lexon, my happy insurance provider, that Lexon realised that a lot of their claims were coming about because of what I'll call rookie silly errors. And the silly errors were because lawyers were trying to do 20 things at once. And it was a simple typo. It was a simple no that should have been a yes in a letter or something like that, that completely changed the meaning of the letter and potentially resulted in a negligence claim. And he came and gave a presentation at the firm and spoke to us about the need to focus on one task. And I know myself, the minute I'm starting to feel a bit all over the shop and inefficient, what I do is write a list, and I do a brain dump. I write down every single thing that is on my mind that's worrying me that I think needs to be done. And then I go back and I prioritize them 1 through to often 300 with any of my lists. And number 1 is often, obviously, the one that needs to be done quickly, urgently, but it's often also the one that I hate. because the sooner I can get rid of that thing that I don't want to do, the easier everything else will become. I like to use rewards. I use self-reward systems when I start to get into those overwhelmed phases, and they'll be simple rewards, simple things. Sometimes they'll be more expansive rewards. An expansive reward for Clarissa is I'm going to get a pedicure. You do these 20 things, you can go and do that at midday. If I don't do those 20 things, I can't do that. So they're my own little systems and, self-motivators around getting some of this stuff done. But a key to that, and what David spoke about, was do that one thing. Turn your phone off, turn your emails off, do that one thing, finish that one task, then move to the next task. And that is being efficient. It's hard. Work is hard in that sense because you can come in with a plan and something happens and your whole day is upside down. That's where we need to be flexible. But we also need to have a bit of a self-checking process around our own efficiencies. And we need to find a way to come back and pause and go, okay, I'm not being efficient right now. What do I need to do to make myself efficient? I can't just throw in the towel. I take a break, I go for a walk, I go and sit in the coffee shop and I write my list, and then I organise my list, and then I come back to my team and I say, I need some help. I'm not going to answer phone calls for the next 3 hours, or I'm going to go and sit somewhere else because I just need to get through this pile. Whatever it is, have your own system, focus on it, be efficient, be organised. So helpful, so useful. Being kind, I harp on about this a lot lately, but I think for me that word kind is so underused and so essential. Kindness just gets us so far in life, and the neuroscience is telling us too that kindness is a fascinating trait, because if you are if you're being kind, it creates the right sort of hormones in your mind and in your body that make you feel happy. Similarly, if you're receiving someone else's kindness, it has the same effect on you. So it's really such a beautiful, simple tool, and it doesn't cost you anything to be kind to anybody. And I've always used that saying, kill them with kindness. So I've always enjoyed the challenge of a person that was difficult, didn't like me, whatever it was. And I enjoy the personal challenge of killing that person with kindness, of demonstrating that I'm not what they think they are, or whatever it might be, and seeing where that can take me. And I don't know, it's often, I guess, a bit of a personal challenge and some fun, but it's something that I encourage you to work into your daily practice and your daily life. It's a sense of kindness with everybody, no matter who, how difficult they are, any of those things. Passionate. All of these things that I'm talking about, I think, lead and help with passion. There'll be a reason that you got into law in the first place, and I think the longer you're in it, the easier it is to lose some of that initial passion that drove you to end up in this industry. It's not hard to check back in with that. And a simple exercise that you can use to come back and work that out, it's simple, but it will take some time. You're going to need a couple of hours, but you're going to need to sit down and you're going to need to write down historically 5 things that you can remember, 5 memories from your life, childhood right through to now, where you felt really amazing. They probably got nothing to do with work, but 5 times in your life where you felt really amazing. Things that you've done, you were really happy, whatever it is. So you need to write all those things down, and you need to start pulling them apart and looking at what is it that are the consistent themes with those 5 different times. What are the skills? What are the great things that you've achieved out of those activities or those events or whatever it is? You also should write down 5 things that you're really proud of that you've achieved in life. Again, they might be broad brush emotional things. They might be actual awards that you've won, whatever it is, but write them down. And then the other one I like to use as a part of this process is, it's a bit dark, so I apologise in advance, is pausing and asking yourself, when all is done and dusted, what do you want to be remembered for? What sort of legacy do you want to leave for your family, for your children, for your friends? What do you want to be known for? There aren't too many people in this world that don't want to be known for something. Write that down. Have a deep think about it. It might be a trait, it might be a feeling, or it might be an actual thing. You might want to do a thing. Once you can start to write those things down and get them all on one piece of paper, there'll be some themes that will drop out. There'll be some traits about yourself that you can play with. If that task just seems like, I can't even imagine, I can't think, I don't know, ask people that know you. Ask your mum and dad, ask your good friends, ask your brothers and sisters. They'll have the answers to all of those questions. Ask them what they think. Put that all together and you're going to start to find your purpose, your passion, what drives you. It is a task that can take some time, and I would, take the time to do it. It's so useful. And your passion and what drives you will probably change over the years, which is okay too. There's a good chance, if you're working here at Brisbane Family Law Centre, that part of the reason that you're passionate about your career and this job of family law will be helping people. There'll be a sense of helping others, working with others, making life easier for other people. It's a common theme that I've found, probably with family lawyers generally, but particularly people that are attracted to this firm. And so for me, that passion that I'm talking about there, working in here, I think something that really can drive that is the sense of helping clients live the best life they can live. As the business owner, I'm interested in that from a twofold perspective. It's not only clients, it's the people that I'm working with. The team here at the firm are like a second family to me. I probably spend more time with them than I do with my actual family, which isn't always a bad thing. But I am genuinely interested in the people working here, themselves achieving and being the best that they can be. I want them to have the best life they can live. For a time, for a period, that might mean being a part of this team. It may mean that they want to move on and do something different, and I'm entirely okay with that. As long as you're following what interests you, what is your passion, that's what I want you doing. That's what I want for the people I'm working with, the clients. They're at a really difficult point in their life. I want them living the best life they can live. Sorry, I'm just choking on water, which is always good when you're trying to talk into a computer. As a part of that, I, in my head, aim for my clients and their families to walk out of our firm in a better place than they came in. That, for me, would be a marker of success on a file. If a person was leaving this office, having worked with us for however long, doing whatever they do, and they are in a better place, whatever that means for them, then I think that's successful, whatever the legal outcome. Again, you've probably all heard me talk about the fact that you can achieve the best possible legal outcome. In a property matter, you could achieve 100% of everything, but it may not make you feel like you're in a better place. In fact, there's a strong chance it'll make you feel like you're in a worse place. When it comes to kids, you could achieve exactly what you want. The kids could be with you most of the time, you could have shared care, whatever it is. But if you've damaged and destroyed the parenting relationship along the way, that's a wasted result. It's an unnecessary result. So we need to be thinking bigger than the actual legal issue and dispute. We need to be thinking about 20 years down the track. What do these people want for their children? Do they want them to be successful, world-changing adults, or do they want them to be the other end of that spectrum? There aren't too many parents that don't want the most amazing things for their children. Whether their children go on to achieve them or not is a whole different kettle of fish. The point is, we don't want to be part of stopping their kids. We don't want to be a part of damaging that. We want to give them the best platform they can to achieve whatever it is they need to achieve in life. London's given me a nice cold, so I'm just struggling to talk at the moment. So apologies for the croaky voice. To do that, to help people be the best that they can be, achieve all that they can, I think you've got to focus on upskilling the people around you, the clients that you're working with, the team members that I'm working with, my friends, whoever it is. I'm always focusing on upskilling. I'm upskilling myself, and in the process, I'm upskilling those around me. We're focusing on educating, so particularly with clients, focusing on educating them and supporting them to find their own life, to make their own decisions. I think this is probably one of the key differences between the BFLC style versus a more traditional style. In a traditional legal model, and that's certainly where my life began, a client comes in, they ask you a question around a property settlement, a parenting matter, whatever it is, and you deliver an answer. And that answer will be, here is the outcome. Here is the answer to your question. Best of luck. There we go. And now I'll tell you how we'll achieve it. My style over the years has shifted significantly away from that style of lawyering to a process of, okay, yes, I understand your question, but what I'm now interested in understanding is, what do you want for your life? What do you want to do, to be? What do you want for your kids? What do you want for your ex-partner? The sooner I can understand all of that, it will open the door to potentially 20 different answers to their question. And what I want to do as a professional is focus them on creating and gaining the information that they need to find the answer that works best for them. It may not be the highest percentage in terms of a property settlement. It may not be the most number of nights in terms of a parenting division, but it may be the best answer for them, taking into account their life. Delightful dying of coughing. So, when you're working with people in here, whether it's your clients, whether it's the people around you, I'm focusing on giving them the tools to find and achieve their goals and dreams. I want to create people that walk out of this office that are better than they were when they came in. They've got more education, they've got more skills, they've got more capacity to communicate, to manage conflict, to be proud of themselves, to be confident. They're all things that are so valuable in life and that a legal process can take away from someone. So I'm interested in reversing that. I'm interested in empowering a person with all of that. How do you do that? You don't sit down and have a long conversation with your client around how it is that you're going to help them achieve their goals and dreams. That's not going to be useful. It's the way that you work with them, the way that you talk with them, the way that you ask them questions. And I'll do a separate webinar specifically on that issue. But again, anyone that's worked with me, the simplest way to describe it is it stems primarily from using a style of negotiation called interest-based negotiation that came out of Harvard Uni in the late 70s, early 80s. That style of negotiation is a very basic principle for understanding, asking questions, getting options, and finding solutions to any problem in life. So the notion is this: you work out what the question is, what the issue is to be resolved, what the problem is. You identify that. You then ask for any myriad of potential solutions to that problem, and there should always be more than 3. 3 is a great number. 2 is too few. There's only 1 or 2 options there. 3 is a good number. It opened up the creative part of a person's brain. If you can get more than 3, better, great, brilliant, go for it. But three potential solutions, and then the next stage is to say, okay, pros and cons. We analyze those 3 solutions, pros and cons. And the tester for analysis is often the person's life, the person's choices, the person's, what they want to do. And then they make a decision. That style of communication and of negotiation is something that I apply all the time, everywhere, both with clients, in my life, with Ollie, with London, doesn't matter what it is. And a great example is, let's pick London. She's 4 right now, so, young, tiny child. What I'm really trying to work into her dialogue and into my dialogue with her is when she raises an objection, doesn't want to do something, whatever it is to get her thinking about options and choices. Okay, well, let's talk this through. You've got 3 or 4 different options that I can see. What else do you want to do? Have you got any other options, choices? Yes, no, 3 bags full. And it's a great way of getting someone to solve their own problem. And problem solving is such an incredibly useful tactic, style, trait to have as a person. And many of the clients that you're working with won't have the skills to solve their own problems at the moment. They're in grief. They may never have been taught how to do this. They may never have thought about it. So if you can open this sort of dialogue with them from the minute you meet them and just keep coming back to it all the time in your negotiations and in your discussions and in your planning without it being obvious. So it just forms part of the conversation. They'll ring and say, I'm going to go and pick the kids up from school. I've decided that's what I'm going to do. And rather than saying, no, you can't, or yes, you can, then the answer to that question should be, tell me why you think that's a good idea. Tell me how you think that's going to pan out. Tell me how you think your ex-partner is going to feel about that. Tell me how you think the kids are going to feel about all of that. And you're getting the information to really understand what is the problem. The problem is, why do you want to go and pick up the kids right now? There'll be a problem sitting under that, an issue sitting under that. And then you start saying, okay, yes, an option is you go and pick up the kids from school right now. What other options do you have though? Tell me some others. What else could we do here? And breaking it down and giving them numbers. You want more than 3. Pick them up, don't pick them up. They're the 2 obvious ones. See why we don't just want 2? We want a better one than that. there'll be 3, 4, 5, 6. It might be don't pick them up today, but let's organise an urgent mediation for, or a telephone conversation for, or let me ring your ex-husband right now and try and sort this out. Whatever it is, there'll be another option. Find that. Then you want to do the pros and cons analysis. If you go and pick the kids up from school right now, what do you think the response is going to be from your ex-partner? How much do you think that's then going to cost in legal fees to solve that problem? That really is an act of war. How would you feel if that happened? All of those things. If you don't pick them up right now, what's that going to mean? You're going to feel really upset. You're obviously feeling really uncertain. You're obviously really scared about when you're going to see the kids again. I completely understand that. And you know, pros and cons. And as a part of that, once you've done all of that pros and cons, you would say to magic client, whoever it is, in light of all of that, what do you think is the best option for you? And you should be able to have a sensible dialogue and let that person make that decision for themselves. And if they make the decision to go and pick up their children and it creates World War X, that's their decision. They own it. That's their decision. That's what I want in terms of style and clients and lawyering in this firm. These are adults. It is their own life. Unless someone is about to do something that is, you know, absolutely ridiculous, you really need to let people live their own choices. But as a part of that, you need to educate them about those choices, and not in a condescending way of saying, if you do that, this is what's going to happen, but in a more curious way of asking a whole heap of questions to hopefully get them to answer and find their own solution, which hopefully is a calmer, sensibler one than the one that you were concerned they were about to do in the first place. I'm coming back then to some of the traits again for the brilliant BFLC lawyer. Always learning. My mentors in my professional life are people many of you know: Rob Grant, Justice Colin Forrest, Jenny Rimmer, Jen McArdle. They're all people that have been around me since I was a baby lawyer, and I grabbed them when I was young and I clung to them, and now I'm really grateful that they're my amazing friends. I think let's take Colin for a short moment. Judge in the family court, would go to a myriad of conferences each year because he's genuinely interested in learning. And prior to going to the court, he was the guru on everything to do with property, and you would very rarely brief Colin in anything to do with parenting. The irony is, of course, now in the family court, he's doing 99.9% parenting, very complex Magellan, difficult matters, very difficult parenting cases, and that's all he does now. So what he made a real effort to do when he jumped on the court was to get himself really knowledgeable about everything to do with the psychology of children, families, all of that sort of stuff. And that took some time. That really took some time. So he is constantly attending things, doing stuff, participating in conferences and all sorts of things to keep his knowledge up there and involved. Similarly as Rob. Rob's been a lawyer as long as I've been alive. That's our ongoing joke. He was admitted the year I was born. But he is constantly learning, constantly changing his skill set, his capacity to do things, and his style of mediating. One of the best ICLs in the country, won a National Children's Lawyer Award. Amazing person, constantly learning. Same for Jen, same for Jenny Rimmer. I encourage you, this journey of learning will never end. If you want to be an amazing lawyer, if you want to be a good person, the journey of learning never ends. And that's half the fun in life, I think, is the more you learn, the better. I've spoken a lot about being technically excellent. That's a given. Collaborative. You're working with the person that is the spokesperson for collaborative law in this country. I live and breathe it, both with clients, but also from a lifestyle perspective, from a business perspective. Many minds together thinking about a problem will always create better solutions than one. So, whether it's working here in the office, whether it's working with your clients, the more brains you can have on any problem, the better solution you're going to get. That's a great thing. It's not a negative thing. And it comes back to my conversation earlier around honesty and knowing that there are people that have different skills than you, potentially better at particular areas than you, and using that to your advantage rather than seeing that as a disadvantage. A brilliant lawyer is always professional. Again, a bit of a given, but you can't let that guard down ever. You can be relaxed, you can be friendly, you can be kind, you can be honest, you can be empathetic, all of those things, but all of that is being professional. Again, I think sometimes the professional stereotype is tied up with those stereotypes of a very traditional lawyer. And as such, you see that sort of standoffish, almost arrogance that comes from that. I have no time for that. I have no time for attitude, raised voices, yelling. You'll just never see that coming from me, and it's the last thing I'd expect from anyone working with me. There's nothing I enjoy more than a slightly arrogant lawyer telling me how the world's going to be, because in that little dialogue, I'm learning everything about their case. I also have a theory that's yet to be proved wrong, that a person who is actively being demeaning, rude, arrogant is generally doing that because they themselves are not confident in something that they're about to do or say. They may not be confident in their case, or they're confident in their knowledge. There's something very persuasive that comes from a calm confidence. So I would think, if I was you, about the people that you respect in the profession and think about their traits. And the ones that I respect anyway, I've never seen them lose their temper. I've never seen them, strutting around the court having heated conversations with colleagues about matters. It just doesn't happen. You can be direct, you can be blunt, but I wouldn't ever find yourself in a situation where you're raising voices or those sorts of things. As a part of being professional, be personable, be yourself, be your own human being, find your own way of, working your way through this little world that is lawland. But be personable, be an actual real person. And I also find the best way to get under the arrogant person or the difficult person is to get them talking about their own life, their own children, their own families, what they did on the weekend, the stuff that isn't that professional demeanor and that stereotype. And once you can get under that skin and they become an actual real person themselves, you're going to have a much better dialogue. So think of Rob Grant. Most of you have participated in a mediation with Rob. Rob tells the same stories all the time. I've heard them for the last 15 years. I roll my eyes at them now. But watch his tactics and watch how he uses those stories to build rapport with people, to relax a room, to relax a person. And then when he needs to really make that person make a decision, or sometimes a very hard decision, it's because he's got that rapport and that human element, and he's, being a bit degrading about himself and his own skill set and all of that stuff. He's been very personable. He's able to win their trust and then get them over the line in terms of making those hard decisions. Really impressive traits, as opposed to the other end of that spectrum. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to own this room. I'm going to tell you when you're allowed to talk, when you're allowed to breathe, when you're allowed to make a decision. This is a very positional conversation. That's not a style that I have a great deal of respect for, because I don't think it's a successful style. Great lawyers at BFLC will be members of a number of professional organisations. Queensland Law Society is a given to have a practicing certificate. FLIPA, Family Law Practitioners Association of Queensland, representative body for 900 lawyers statewide. You want to be a part of that organisation. You want to go to their workshops. You want to go to their social functions. The more you can get to know your colleagues, the easier the whole process is. Again, I often have conversations with all of you around who's on the other side. Okay, what do we know about that person? Because the minute we know a person slightly well, we can adjust how we operate to try and accommodate some of their own strengths and weaknesses, which makes the whole case easier for both us and our client. Queensland Collaborative Law is an organisation that you may want to be a part of. At the moment, probably I'm a bit on the fence about that organisation, but it is worth going to the practice group meetings once a month for collaborative law. We are the only firm probably in the country with pretty much everyone as a collaborative lawyer, actively marketing ourselves that way. It's important to me that we continue to be seen as the market leader in that type of law. So I think it is important for us to be active in that community. I'm happy to talk more about it. At the time of recording this, that organisation is still trying to find its feet, and it's a bit all over the shop. So it doesn't have the years of history that, say, FLIPA would have. But I think certainly the practice group meetings and the conferences that they put on are worth being involved in. IACP is the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. I would definitely be a part of that organisation. And a goal for some of you moving forward might be to try and get to some of their overseas conferences. They do some amazing conferences all over the world. And I think, that might be something to aspire to, is to say one day I want to go to somewhere in Europe, lovely tax-deductible holiday, participate in one of these conferences. But the resources that are available through the IACP on their website for members are extraordinary. and it's definitely something I'd be a part of. Family law section is the national body for family lawyers. Again, something worth being a part of. They do a conference on a biannual basis, the National Family Law Conference. It's on again this year in Melbourne. A really good organisation, and I think focuses more on the technical aspects of law than, say, Flipper does. So their conferences tend to be very high-level technical stuff. The papers are very worth getting your hands on, particularly the annual case summary that will come out of their one-day events in Sydney and Melbourne. It'll give you, generally they'll have a federal circuit court judge and a family court judge doing a sort of case summary of every particular useful family law case that occurred in the 12 months prior, so incredibly useful. And the other thing I do encourage you to think about doing is volunteering at some of the community legal centres. I know over the years many of the lawyers in here have done that. I certainly did that when I was starting out. I was at the Women's Legal Service for a number of years. I think volunteering is useful from a whole array of perspectives, but the style of work we now receive here at Brisbane Family Law Centre is, I guess, private paying clients who tend to be reasonably amicable. What I remember in my early days as a lawyer, and certainly when I started the firm when we were doing legal aid work, is that you would have a lot more fast-paced, complex stuff, urgent court dates, people that couldn't read and write, just a type of client that we don't see here in the way that I used to, say, 10 years ago. So I think if you have the opportunity, volunteering is a really good thing to do. It's a good thing to do for the world. It's a good thing to do for yourself because it'll force you to think of answers and build rapport and use all of the skills that we're talking about in a much shorter, quicker session. And sometimes doing that at pace on your own is a great way to build confidence, particularly if you're starting out. I just wanted to touch on the different, what I'm calling ages and stages of lawyers. We've certainly got this here at the firm at the moment. And again, just some comments and thoughts about where you're at in terms of your own practice and career, and what I think I'd be focusing on if I was you anyway at these different stages. We're all different, but this is the Clarissa gospel for the purposes of this 1 hour anyway. If you're in that 0 to 1 years, you've just been admitted, I think your focus has to be the technical aspects. That's pretty much all I'd be focusing on right now. I'd be trying to build my confidence with the law. I'd have a copy of the Family Law Act sitting on my desk. I'd be constantly opening it to see, whatever I'm doing, where it fits within that legislation. I'd be getting really, really comfortable with that wonderful Master Family Law Guide that floats around in here somewhere that is, the one book that sort of gives you a beautiful summary of every possible legal issue. I'd be reading that cover to cover. I'd be stealing Clarissa's specialist accreditation notes and I'd be reading those cover to cover. I'd be creating my own precedent database. That's something I did from day dot. I created my own little precedent database. Every time I did an order, an affidavit, whatever it was, I saved it, I kept it, I had it in my own system so that I didn't have to keep regurgitating the wheel, but I also wanted my own precedents. I didn't want to use the firm's ones at the time. I wanted to learn for myself. I did the same thing with letters, with orders, all of that sort of stuff. So I'd be starting, to create my own systems. I'd be doing lots of tables and flowcharts. I'd be paying attention to the steps that I'm taking on things. I'd be listening to all the lawyers around me. I don't know, I'd just be like a sponge. But my focus would be on the law. That's what I'd be paying a lot of attention to. I think that second year, it's pretty much the same, save that I'd be trying to get a bit more autonomy. So in my second year, I'd be focusing on trying to get the whole way through the answer or the question and the answer before I had to consult with someone else. Doesn't mean I wouldn't consult. I'd just be focusing on, I want to try and do this myself. I want to be at that 2-year point. I want to know that I'm pretty autonomous. I think one of the difficulties for our profession was the loss of articles. Articles was such a great way for people to learn, get experience, and not be under pressure of having the label lawyer. And that first 2 years is meant to be similar. The difficulty now is that you're called a lawyer. And so with that comes all of the expectation of someone who is a lawyer. So again, that second year, my focus would still be on the technical skill, but with more of a push towards autonomy. trying to be on your own, trying to do a couple of things by yourself, looking for opportunities where you can push yourself. If you don't push yourself in those early years, it's going to be so much harder to do it later on. There's never a good time to have your first court appearance. There's never a good time to do your first mediation. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. But you've got to try. You've got to give it a whirl. And I think I just, in my head, think, well, better me than this poor person, client, by themselves here. And again, if you go into court, you will see a whole breadth and varied type of lawyer. So there are some amazing ones and there are some less great ones. And I think that's the other thing I think to yourself. If you're working in here, you're going to be skilled. So have some confidence in that. You've got to back yourself a bit and you've got to take some risks. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to keep moving forward. The 2 to 5 year category is always an interesting one, I think. It's where you start to have enough knowledge to be quite dangerous, but still be a bit risky. And it's where your employer, particularly me, and I think it's consistent with most employers, would want you to be pretty autonomous and want you to start building your own practice, building your own referral networks. You're starting to be a mini business within the business, starting to be, not necessarily it, but starting to be. You're still focusing on the technical aspects, but that should be becoming far more innate. You shouldn't have to be pausing and thinking and pulling out sections. It should just be rolling out. And you'd be really, I think, starting to focus on 2 elements, what I'll call the soft skills, the human skills, but you'd also be starting to focus on some specialties. You'll be starting to think to yourself, this is the stuff I really love doing. This is where I want to really focus my knowledge, and this is what I want to be known for. So again, you all know, working with me, what I'm known for is being the girl that keeps people out of court. So I've really focused my attention on collaborative law, mediation, negotiation, communication, all of those skills together to be able to be the person that can advocate and say, I have a skill at settling things. I do have a skill in finding solutions that other people can't. And I've really honed that and focused on that and looked at the neuroscience and looked at the psychology. That's been my focus. It interests me. That's why it's been my focus. And that started many years ago. I'm 2000, so what am I, 13 years post-admission. I did articles. I started that in the year 2000. So I'm the best part of 16 years. I'm at a very different stage than that 2 to 5 years, but it certainly started at that point, picking that specialty, honing it, being interested in it. Don't pick a specialty you're not interested in. That's not going to work. Pick something that you're genuinely interested in. I think also at this point, I'd start looking for opportunities to grow your professional profile. The tipper for me and the key for that for me was getting on the flipper board. And I did that the year I opened the firm, so 2008. So that was 4 or 5 years post-admission. That board was easier to get on then than it is now. Now there's rigorous elections every year, but that's a good board to try and get on. Collaborative law board, any of the QLS boards. The minute you're seen as a representative for your peers, you step into a different zone and your relationships with others will start to broaden as well. So I'd be looking for those opportunities if I was in this space of the 2 to 5 years. 5 to 10 years, again, I think that's a hard period because it is also where I do see a lot of people starting to really suffer from burnout. And again, some of the Lexon information in terms of risk is that these are again the danger zone people, because you do know enough. It starts to become a little bit boring because you know it and you don't have to think about it so much anymore. It's not such a challenge. You're starting to get a bit burnt out, so your attention to detail is a bit less. The other great thing, though, I think about the 5 to 10 years is that you do know what you're doing. And now's the time to really think about, what do you want your future life to look like and your future career to look like? And at this point, people should really be deciding, do you want to be a business owner? Do you want to be a partner? Are you happy being an employed solicitor for the rest of eternity? Because that would be the period, I think, where you're really putting the building blocks in place to make those decisions. Do you want to go to the bar? Do you want to step out of private practice and try something else? Whatever it is, I'd really be thinking about it. And if the decision is to stay certainly in private practice at that point, I think this is an opportune period to think about doing the accredited specialist program with QLS or a master's program with the College of Law and really become an expert in your field. As an employee, you will be far more valuable to an employer if you have the specialist accreditation logo attached to you than the master's program, to be frank. But as I understand it at the time of this anyway, if you complete the master's program, it gets you out of having to do the exam for the specialist accreditation program. And the exam is the killer for most people doing that. So there may be some advantages in doing both, in the sense of doing your master's, which curtails what you need to do for spec accred. All things to think about, but certainly if you're going to pursue a career, whether it be private practice, at the bar, ultimately have visions of becoming a judge, then I think you really want to be focusing your attention on that spec accred type stuff at this stage. Personal branding becomes essential at this point, starting to build yourself a business within a business. The minute you have a business within a business, you are incredibly valuable. You can move between firms and there'll be a premium paid for you as a person. That's where your personal brand comes in. Being known for something, being known as the person who does X or is an expert in Y, or whatever it is, you need to be known for something to have a personal brand. Your personal brand can't just be being Clarissa. Your personal brand needs to be Clarissa the Girls that is great at XYZ, whatever that is for you. You can concoct that and create that. You've seen me do it if you work with me. You write about it, you talk about it, you live and breathe it, you hone your skill set in it. But you have to be passionate about it. There's no point setting up a personal brand about something that doesn't interest you in the slightest, because it won't be authentic. And for a personal brand to work, it actually has to be authentic. Sorry, I'm once again struggling with the talking thanks to my cold. The 10 plus years, if that's you, you should really now have a specialty within a specialty. You'll have other interests than just doing the practical law stuff. You'll be, I guess a bit like me at the moment, writing, speaking, talking, teaching. If you're working in a firm, you'll be doing a lot of supervision of other lawyers, and you will probably have a personal brand. You'll be known for something. I think that's a nice phase to be at, because it's like a bit of a world of opportunity. You probably at this point are either a partner in a firm, a business owner, or you've made a conscious decision not to be, which is entirely okay as well. But I think you'll probably be feeling more comfortable in where you are in your career. Don't do webinars when you have a cold. Mental note. Okay, I'm going to try and finish this up quickly for you. Just a few other things. Traits that I think are incredibly helpful. Optimism and having a positive outlook. I was reading last week that you can teach optimism, which excited me a lot. Generally, people are naturally optimistic or pessimistic. Generally, lawyers are pessimistic. I don't cope well with pessimistic people, so most of you working in here won't be pessimistic because they frustrate me, because I'm an overly optimistic person sometimes, which is problematic. But I think looking for the positive, looking for the glass half full, even when things are really hard, is such a helpful trait. It's what can get you out of a hole when you're really not feeling great. So it's something that I'd focus on. And a good way of doing that is to create yourself a success board. And Hayley, I hope you're listening to this, because this was some homework I was going to give you actually. A success board is literally a piece of cardboard, or something nicer if that's what you want, where you make a conscious effort to record visually in front of you some of the successes that you're having on a daily basis. And they're often not big things, but if you visually put that in front of you at your desk, it's such a helpful reminder, so that when you get the email, the phone call, you have the conversation, something is not great, you've got that visual reminder in front of you about the good stuff. Our bodies and our brains are hardwired to pay more attention to danger, anger, negative emotions than positive. So the bad things that have happened to you will stick with you more than the positive things. So when those bad, not so great moments are occurring, you want to have in front of you the capacity to see something positive, see some stuff that's going on there. Being calm, really important. Not overreacting, self-managing in terms of your own emotions. That's a big one for me, being calm. And I'm trying to think who it was. Someone described me as the more stressed I get, the more calm I get. I was really honoured to hear that feedback, because that's something that I strive to be. No matter how stressed I get, I try and remain calm and get calmer. Now, there are moments when that doesn't always happen. But I think if you can do that, you want your brain to be in a good decision-making mode. And the minute you get flustered and stressed, you're in reptile brain, and that's not good. That's not good thinking mode. That's flight or fight. That's, I'm going to fight you or I'm going to run away. Not helpful. Two options that we don't like. So you want to be, remaining calm, breathing deeply, taking time so that you can get your brain into the right space to be making some smart decisions and really thinking. Another trait that I think is really powerful is sharing in others' success. And certainly for me, since I became a part of the KPI community, this is something that's really infiltrated my life and that I love and that I know is lacking from the law world. In law land, we very rarely celebrate the success of others, particularly outside of your own firm or your friends. Even with your friends, I'm finding anyway, the further you get through this happy profession and the more that your friends really are, in some ways, your own competitors, there is a culture that is not about celebrating each other's successes. As compared to my entrepreneur friends, and maybe it is because as business owners we're not competing, there is such a culture of celebrating the success of friends. And so when someone I know does something well or achieves something or whatever it is, I feel good. And I love that as a culture. And it's something that we've certainly started to implement here in the firm, and simple things like spreading the message via email when someone achieves something, does something, hears something, receives good feedback, whatever it is, but sharing in other success. It comes back again for me around if the people around me are positive, vibrant, pushing forward, doing great things, it lifts me to that level. And again, there's been worldwide research that I am the equal to the 7 people I spend the most time with. So those people that in the business community particularly are interested in success and achievement will often try and align themselves with people that are much further up the ranks than them. And if they can put themselves in a pool of 7, Richard Bransons, there's a really strong chance that they themselves will become someone like a Richard Branson because they'll be influenced by those people around them. So it's the same thing for me. I don't necessarily want to hang out with 7 Richard Bransons, but I do want to hang out with people that are positive, uplifting, going somewhere, doing good things in the world, because that will rub off on me, makes me a better person, makes the world a better place. So I'm interested in knowing about the successes of the people that are working with me. Most lawyers, most BFLC team members love what they do most of the time. It's okay to have moments where you don't love what you do. But I think it's important to try not to get stuck on that. And that's the time where you want that success board, or you want that passion piece of paper that you've got where you've gone back to why it is that you came into this crazy career in the first place. Or you step out of the office and go and get a pedicure at that time, or you go away for a weekend. Whatever it is, you've got to have your own ways of reminding yourself that there are bits about what you do that you love. And like anything in life, there will be bits about what you have to do that you don't always love. You've got to try and find a way to make the good things outweigh the not so great things. I think a thing to remember, a brilliant lawyer always remembers that without clients, we don't have a business. It's all well and good having the best team in the world, but if you don't have any clients, then you don't have a business. And so the clients have to be the heart and soul of our business, and they should be treated that way accordingly. We need to be generous, kind, curious, empathetic with them. No matter who they are, no matter what they're doing, they're paying us an awful lot of money. We're privileged to be involved with them at the stages of life that they are. So I don't think you can overlook that they are the heart and soul and should really be treated with immense respect. This is my other favourite saying, you've got to look after your own monkeys. And so again, I think as a great team member, great lawyer, great person, you will have the capacity to know when you're starting to put your monkeys on someone else's back. When you're starting to take your problems and dump them on other people, and suddenly you feel better because you've handed your problem to someone else. You haven't solved it, you just passed it over. And I expect, listening to this, you've all had moments where you've felt that someone's done that to you, where they've just dumped their pile of monkeys on your desk or in your life or at your home, and all of a sudden they're your problem. We don't work like that here, sorry. So if you've got a monkey, everyone in this team will be very happy to hear about it, talk about it, play with it even, but they'll pop it back on your back as you leave the room. So if you do have a challenge that you're facing, if you do need something that you need some assistance with, I like to call them monkeys, bring it to me, bring it to someone in here, but be ready to do the old interest-based discussion. What is the problem? What are the potential solutions that you found to that problem? Are there any more? What are the pros and cons analysis of each of those? If it's a team member issue, if it's something to do with working here, for me, I'll also ask, how can I help you with that? What do you think I could do to help you with that problem? What do you think you could do to help you with that problem? What do you think, anyone else / what other resources could help with that problem? And I, like to have respectful, articulate conversations about challenges, and problem solve them, and then find a solution, as opposed to the emotive conversation, which is, here's my monkey, see you later, I'm out of here. Not helpful. And I think this is almost finally. If you want to be a brilliant lawyer, whether it be here at BFLC, whether it be anywhere else, I think you have to accept early on that it's going to take some hard work. Hard work is not something to be afraid of, and hard work can be a lot of fun, but it's going to take hard work, and it's probably not all going to happen between the hours of 8:30 and 5. There'll be stuff that you'll need to do in what some people call their own time. I sort of think your work time is your own time as well. You choose to be here. That, will be work related, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So much of the great stuff that's happened in my life has been work related. And I think if you can see that the hard work is actually fun, it's going to be a lot easier for you. If you're not feeling that fun, then maybe you do need to pause and regroup. What's going on? Why isn't this fun? Is there something different I should be doing that is more fun? Not necessarily as a career, but is there something different in my law life that I could be doing that would be more fun? So that, my friends, is Clarissa's 1 hour summary of what I think it takes to be a brilliant BFLC lawyer. I hope that's helpful. I apologise for the croaky voice. If you're starting with the team, I hope that gives you a really good summary of, I guess, the culture that's grown here over the last 8 to 9 years as the team's got bigger, and I think as I've become a better boss. And by that I mean I've got clearer around what I think, what I feel, what I believe in, the type of people I like to be around, the type of people that I think fit well here at the firm. And I think over the years I've just got better at being able to articulate that. And the beautiful thing about culture is it does shift and change, and it grows with the people that are here, which is a positive thing. But a friend of mine, great entrepreneur, has business at the moment, KPI guy Glenn, and he talks about people making a dent in the universe. That's his brand at the moment, is Dent. And he wants to be surrounded by people that are out there making a dent in the universe. And I think that's such a lovely, simple way of describing the sort of person that I'm interested in hanging out with too, and I'm interested in working with. Life is so short, and unless something amazing is going to happen, I'm pretty sure we're only here once. And so why wouldn't you want to make the best go of that? Why wouldn't you want to be doing something purposeful and useful in your day-to-day life? Whether you'll be a family lawyer for the next 40 years, who knows? But why not just enjoy each day for what it is while you're here? Be positive about that, reflect upon the good stuff, try not to get stuck in the hard stuff, and just have some fun. Thank you.